Yeah. So the last character I do want to bring up is the Super Rats.
Ah,
My cameo.
this is a sponsored episode, of course. Marty's sponsoring us.
The Super Rats get brought up more consistently than anything else.
And even they don't have any payoff.
Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm the Society.
And this week we take an ill-advised trip into the DC universes with 2019's The Joker. And joining us yet again is game designer and writer extraordinaire, Marti.
An army of metaphorical super rats.
Marti will, of course, be playing the role of Super Rat today.
I'm the Super Rat King.
Thank you. Before we have an extended conversation about the society in which we live, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla, Marti, what has gathered us here today?
A state.
I don't know. You fucks. Why don't you answer that question? I didn't want to be here.
Listen, it was an indefensible crime, I'll admit, but that's life. And it's funny, something, I forget the rest of the lyrics.
My friends, my close friends who I talk to damn near every day of my life, they today got to learn that I have not only not seen the Joker, I knew nothing about the Joker. I did that on purpose. I did that with it was like my mission to avoid every piece of Joker content. And then these two were like, hey, Leyla, by the way, we're watching the Joker. And now how do we feel about that? How do we feel 2.5 hours later?
To be fair to me, I thought for sure that even if you hadn't watched Jenny Nicholson break down the actual plot, I thought for sure you would have watched the Sideways musical theory about it.
Absolutely
just out of a
not.
Grim, miserable curiosity like I did.
Not for a fucking second did I put myself through that. And I won't, Mr. Sideways. I'm sorry. I love you, but not even for you.
You'd like
So recently it was announced that this great film is going to be receiving a sequel that will be a musical. I think it's Joker, A Folie à Deux, which
like
I think...
Fall Out Boy album.
Oh, fuck yes. Which I think is going to have either Margot Robbie or Lady Gaga.
It's Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. The thing that I am convinced of now, more than anything, after watching this great origin story, is that Joker 2 will be good.
I thought for sure we had dissuaded you of that during our 42-hour viewing of the movie.
It sure felt like 42 hours, didn't it?
It is truly a movie that will not fucking end.
Yeah, but you know what? I think it's very important that we get the background, that we get the important source material for Joaquin Phoenix's great performance. And you know what? To set up the audience, I'm going to try to walk through the plot of this film before we have an extended discussion about why it maybe didn't work. Why it, period. So our titular Joker is named Arthur Fleck. His job is that he is a clown and goes to parties.
His job is that he's a clown. It's really I guess people just
he's a clown for
him.
hire, yeah, right. He's a rent-a-clown.
Clown parentheses miscellaneous.
Yeah, clown at all. And he
Clown Esquire.
He's a lawyer also.
Clown.
His whole deal is that he has a unspecified neurological disorder that causes him to laugh uncontrollably. Don't worry, we'll get there. Basically, you know, he's down on his luck. In the first 5 minutes of the film, he gets beat up by a bunch of teens, which is extremely funny. And because of that, one of his coworkers gives him a gun. And that's not great. But anyway, he goes home, he lives with his mom, and he's like, oh, I'm so sad. We live in this shitty apartment. The trash is literally piling up in the streets because of this garbage workers strike.
That goes nowhere. Just in case you were worried about there being a plot point in this movie, don't worry, there's not. You don't have to think about it.
They open the film with it, and it does not pay off in every way. It's just like the streets are filled with trash. Well, maybe that's a metaphor. Interesting. We'll come back to that. But basically, he's like sad, and he has this disorder, and everybody hates his guts because he laughs in weird times. But he still has these dreams of being a stand-up comedian. His biggest dream is to be on the Something Murray show. What's the guy's last name?
No, it's the Something Murray show. That's
Murray Franklin show,
which is like show.
Which is like a David Letterman.
Double check if that's Robert De Niro, just in case it's.
It is. It is Robert De Niro.
Okay.
Yeah. He's great.
And like his whole guy looked like Ben Stiller, so
that one guy did look like Ben Stiller, I guess. But like,
I wanted to double check the De Niro.
Yeah, exactly. His whole deal, right, is that he wants to. He views this guy Murray Franklin as a father figure, right? Because he doesn't have a dad. His mom Penny Fleck is just like. It's sad and she has to live at home, but she's like obsessed with writing letters to Thomas Wayne, who is of course Bruce Wayne's father. Bruce Wayne, of course, being Batman. Sorry to spoil that secret.
Not right
for
now, though,
the audience.
He's 12.
Right now, he's a 12-year-old little boy. But as the plot progresses, we see that Arthur is down on his luck, and he's like trying to be a comedian, but like nobody thinks his jokes are funny. Everybody thinks he's kind of a dumbass. But like one night he sees these like quote Wall Street guys kind of harassing a woman on the subway, and his disorder triggers, and he starts laughing, giving the woman time to escape. The subway men do sing 2 verses of Send in the Clowns while they beat the fuck out of him.
The subway men, I don't understand the subway men. Who were they?
Oh.
You said they were Wall Street guys, which I guess they were wearing suits. So they were either Wall Street guys or like 4 guys who were just at a wedding or...
That's interesting. Yeah, who were those men? We'll get there. Because here's the thing.
We have so many pins in the board already.
We are riddling this board with pins. But basically, he all of a sudden when he these guys beat him up, but he takes that... Riddle. Yeah, sorry, wrong movie.
We're jokering the board with pins.
God. He kills these guys, right? Because that guy gave him his gun. So he shoots them, and that starts like a social movement, right? Everybody's like, oh, wow, this guy stood up for himself and murdered these bad men. But Thomas Wayne is just like, oh, yeah, that was bad that he did that, I hate it when people murder rich people. I also happen to be a billionaire. And like there's the sequence where he also is like really horny after he kills these men, and like this girl that lives in his apartment complex, like he all of a sudden she is like, oh wow, I really think you're great, I'll go out with you, no 100%. And they start dating. Basically, I'm not
even sure if it was horniness, because I don't think the director understands human attraction enough to even understand himself why that happened. It's just like, well, I need them to get together now, so...
You gotta... Marty, I promise you, this is all part of the thing. And I think you kind of nailed on it. We were talking earlier, but I think you know where this is going. Right? He has this romance with this woman, and then eventually, right, he comes to realize that Thomas Wayne's his father when he opens one of his mom's letters to him. He confronts Thomas Wayne, who is just like, no, actually your mom was delusional and abused you and got committed. He goes to Arkham Asylum, where he finds the notes that the doctor took, which are all fake, basically. And the film shows us that they're fake at the time. And like, it's a very strange thing, but basically he believes them, even though the film is like, these are fake notes. He goes back and he believes his mom abused him, so he kills her. He smothers her while she's in the hospital, which sucks. And then he goes on to a clip of him at a comedy show was played on the Randall or the Murray Franklin show, so he gets invited on. he goes to the Murray Franklin show, does his bit, but then like when it's revealed that he's actually, a big tough guy that killed those guys, and started the social movement, he gives a really big speech about how society has abandoned people like him. He shoots Murray. The whole of Gotham City explodes into a riot. He's almost killed in a car accident, but then he stands on top of a burning cop car and does a little dance. And he is later put into Arkham Asylum, but he's a folk hero at the end. And that's super super fun, I guess. That's basically what happens in this movie. Oh, also, it was revealed that the girlfriend wasn't actually his girlfriend. He was having a mental breakdown the whole time because this film does a terrible job of portraying mental illness.
And, like, basic film direction.
Yeah, let me get something out of the way. Okay, so, like, it's, when we say it does a terrible job of portraying mental illness, right, I want to make sure people are like, our small but dedicated audience understands that it is okay to make messy content about mentally ill characters. Like, we're not protesting that by any means. Shit should get messy. There is a fundamental, I won't even fault lack of understanding, because it's fiction. You could make up a fictional illness all you want. You know what I mean? Like Morbius, he morbs, right? He's a vampire. He's made up a fictional.
Morbs, I think.
He's got the morbing.
Diagnosed
got terminal morbs.
There is a lack of internal continuity and logic to what Arthur is experiencing. There are consequences for actions, but the fucking actions don't make sense. So then you're too busy thinking about how the consequence, you're like, yeah, I get it, but the reason why it happened is stupid, so I can't buy into it. Like, it's just, there is no, like, it's just frustrating. And in trying deliberately to be interesting, it's just confusing and antagonistic to the audience. And after, 45 minutes, it just becomes very boring to watch.
Work yesterday, I was talking to my boss about DC movies. And we were talking about, like, how they have this, like, critical problem in, like, the group movies especially. Like, not so much maybe in, like, the standalone Batman movies and stuff, but like, especially around the Justice League, you get very confused about what everyone's powers are and what the limitation of their powers are and what the internal logic of it is. Because we were talking about, like, Wonder Woman, for instance. She's supposed to be Amazonian, but she's played by Gal Gadot, who is, like, a person. And so she does these amazing feats of strength. I've said that many times. And you think, does she have super strength? Is that something she has? Does she rely on outside, like, Amazonian artifacts to have powers? She just has whatever power is convenient in the moment for her to have, or whatever is most cinematic to look at, or whatever is the most, like, metaphorically meaningful, like the angel costume she had, I guess, or the wings or whatever they were. I don't know.
Yeah, the stupid 1984 shit. Yeah.
And we were talking, and Arthur is almost like that with his mental illness, where his mental illness doesn't have any, like, it has a name. They say he's, like, paranoid and delusional, and his mother has narcissistic personality disorder. They name drop a lot of stuff, but it shows up, it manifests, and it behaves as if it's a DC superhero power, which is to say it's inconsistent internally. It doesn't have, like, easy to understand cinematic triggers, which, of course, real people, their mental illness isn't cinematic, but in a movie, you want your audience to understand, like, what's happening, why they're seeing something happen on screen, and Arthur, it's just sometimes he does stuff and they point the camera at him, and that's your cinema.
Which, you know what, as, like, a writer, as a storyteller, as a consumer of media, I'm pro vibes. I don't need a rule book for everything that happens on screen. I don't need to know the, like, chemical reaction that gives Superman laser eyes or whatever I don't care. But, like, I have I love certain movies that are literally just vibes. Like, I love Promare to death. Does Promare make any internal sense? No. Does it operate on, like, real physics? No. Those boys should have been dead 4 times over, right? They all combust and the fire is pink. And then they crash their big robot all the time. I didn't see any fucking airbags in there. But the first act of the movie does a really good job of setting up the fact that this is cartoon logic, and then the audience can follow along. Joker doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be a character study on the Joker? Does it want to have something to say about the medical system? Does it want to have something to say about wealth inequality? Does it want to be a supervillain movie? What do you want to be? I can't tell.
And that's what, at the end, when Arthur's like, oh, I don't believe in anything. I'm not political. I don't believe in anything. And it's like, then what was the movie? We just sat there and watched, like, oh, the medical system is garbage and it left me behind, and the rich people destroyed my mother, even though I'm the one who personally killed her. And the garbage is piling up because the garbage men are on strike, and everyone's so upset that they hang on to this clown hero. And it's like, okay, why did we watch all of that if you don't think anything about that? Because it really felt, because, I mean, we all remember what a fucking shit fit that Todd Phillips, right?
He's the director.
Yes. That he threw when people didn't want to watch his movie about the Joker because it was going to be edgy nonsense. He threw such a fit about it, and a lot of this movie, sometimes, anytime it says anything or stops to have an actual message, it's like, oh, everything sucks and it's bad because some people were mean to me on Twitter one time. Like, it's...
I think that's exactly it, Marty. When I say this film is made for people like me, I mean it is made for, young men in America under, maybe, I would say under 35.
Unlike
specifically,
Joaquin Phoenix.
Unlike Joaquin Phoenix, who is like 48. But like, this is a film that I think is tailored specifically to meet a kind of young man who has grown up in this, I hesitate to say post 9/11, but like in the kind of ways that American, society, I said the word, has has kind of like,
now you have to put a coin in the swear jar.
Yeah, I know, ding. The ways in which, like, wealth inequality, right? People in both American society and in the Joker are feeling the effects of wealth inequality, but like, they don't, right? When he's talking about being political, right? There is a certain class of young man who views the political as like anathema or pastiche, or something that's not important, right? I feel like this film is just a grievance film that's just like, I don't know why I'm sad, and in order to make everybody else see my internal goings on, I need to do violence, right? And I think that's what this movie is about, is young men who have no a way to express why they feel hollow and frustrated about their lives, except by doing violence. And that's why I feel like this movie appeals to its core audience. Like, at a certain point, I just got what this movie was trying to say, and I was like, oh, this is one of those. Now, it seems that Leyla has opened up a stream. Let's see what's going on here.
That is the society counter. I'm going to count how many times that word organically comes up in this discussion.
Excellent. Good. Great. Thank you.
But I really feel like, because I told you guys going into this that my mother was pretty certain that I would love this movie.
Which is hysterical.
My mother is like core boomer. She was like, how we're right on the edge of Gen Z and millennial. She was right on the edge of boomer and Gen silent
X?
Generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the X, because Z is after us. Z is after us. So, so she was right on that line. And this movie is like, it's really speaking to a time where it's like everything's shitty and everyone's shitty, and I'm so upset, and I can see that there's so many things wrong with it. And rather than do anything about it, because like it's not the violence that gets me, because it's like you said, it's like I'm upset, and to communicate that to people I have to do violence. But they were doing this because when we've seen the stuff like, okay, Occupy Wall Street, because that's a fundamentally New York thing that happened, and the Black Lives Matter protests and stuff, like they got wet and wild. And like, especially during the pandemic, stuff got wet and wild. Like, I'm like, remember when the police place where all the pigs
Minneapolis
hang out? Yes.
Police district was burned down, yeah.
Yeah, the pig pen burned down. I like that. That was fine. I was okay with that. But
this is an ACAB podcast.
What?
This is an ACAB podcast.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm just making sure I'm not gonna get you guys like caught by the FBI or something. But
listen, I'm a lady immigrant. I'm gonna go down first either way. You're good.
But like that was great, and like, but this isn't that kind of like rioting, you know? They're like, oh, there's riots happening, and this guy is holding 2 cans of like gas that doesn't hurt him, and the canisters aren't hot, and he's standing there and holding it, and they just like bleed color, and it's like, okay, that's meaningless. That's nothing. That's a visual. That isn't anything. Right. It's just mindless violence for violence's sake, because he's like, oh, all these politics is making it hard for me to go on Twitter because everyone's so mean. And it's like, that's nothing.
We'll see who cancels who, woke moralists.
It's revolution vibes.
Yes.
It's a revolution Pinterest board.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think this film came out right before the mass uprising in 2020. I don't think that this film gets made if it starts filming like around that time, right? Because this sort of like anti-political stance that a lot of young men who are going to go out and watch this film, which they did. This movie made $1 billion. You know, that kind of ideology that is trying to appeal to that the politics of nihilism. Right. I think you're both correct in that, like, these riots that he is trying to inspire are fundamentally meaningless and don't actually have a thing besides, like, oh, rich Chads are always mean to me, and the girl that I gave a pen to in class doesn't actually know my name. Right. I think that is the ideology they're going for. And when they are juxtaposed with actual, mass uprisings, shout outs to the people of Sri Lanka today who just invaded their president.
You guys enjoy that
president's
pool?
Palace and jumped in their pool. Yeah. Like that is actual political revolution and upheaval. And I don't think that is what the people who are, making this movie want to actually appeal to.
And he said nihilism too. And when I acquired this movie, the synopsis talked about, oh, it's a character study of Arthur Fleck's descent into nihilism and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's like that one Tumblr post where it's like people think nihilism is sad face, nothing matters, everything echoes in a meaningless chamber and space, and then we die. But nihilism is like, at its best, nihilism is like, nothing matters, so we can do it, because who cares if it doesn't work out? We could just keep trying endlessly because there's no limit to what we are capable of or what opportunities we will have.
Mm-hmm.
While we're celebrating the good people of Sri Lanka, I do also want to shout out to the good people of the UK who were blasting yakety sax as Boris Johnson resigned.
The funniest shit in the world.
Oh, yeah. I want to kiss that man on the mouth. I know he's like in his 60s or whatever. I would still kiss him.
Hugh Grant,
sir?
or
no, the guy with the speakers. He's gonna get even more speakers.
Excellent.
Sir, there's a free kiss for you in Buffalo, New York. You come claim it.
Excellent.
So fun fact: we're still in the summary section of this film. I do want to get into the characters. Okay,
I think that's the only way we move forward at all.
Correct.
That's the only forward momentum we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this movie has fundamentally radicalized us.
Not the way it thinks it has, but
I am Joker-fied, but like parentheses negative.
Here are negative dollars in your Joker account.
So Arthur Fleck is our Joker. Okay, so I want to get this out of the way. Joaquin Phoenix lost 30 pounds for this role. Joaquin Phoenix is not a large man to begin with.
I actually saw like higher estimates than 30.
Oh, good God.
Listen.
In that Esquire article, I think, because I skimmed it because me and Aaron were looking stuff up before we started recording.
Yeah, well, I was at the dog park because I thought we were starting later. Okay, I want to be really careful here. I'm not trying to body shame anybody. However, he kept posing himself in a way where his ribs were starting to look borderline anatomy skeleton in a classroom.
It looked like the scene from Alien where the chest burster comes out and like opens up the rib cage. It was a lot.
It's not even that he was thin. It's just that he kept sucking in his stomach and leaning back. And you could see his rib cage slope in to where there was all those soft organs and no bone. And I hated every moment of it. It made me... I didn't like it. I didn't like his physicality at all in this movie whatsoever. I couldn't tell what he was playing at. Sometimes he would, like, do an action and then have to repeat it because he's, like, kind of playing at autism. And I hated it. It didn't seem authentic. It didn't seem good. It just made me uncomfortable. Like, the physicality of this Joker sucked. Like, to watch. The quality of what he was doing was fine. It's just that what he was doing was bad.
I watched a lot of like reviews and like breakdowns of this movie, just so I would never, out of curiosity, accidentally watch it.
Oops.
And in all the breakdowns, they're very generous about assuming what's going on, which I'm sure, like, because obviously, like, the dancing and the music, it's all a critical motif, and it's all themed around his obsession with this television show, the Murray Show or whatever. It didn't come across as clearly as the breakdowns made it seem. Like, his physicality around the dancing and the singing and stuff, and I can't remember if we mentioned earlier if this was fully contained in the screaming that happened after the movie was finally over, but it's so inconsistent, and like you never know why he's doing a thing, which, like I said, in real life, obviously real people with real mental illness don't control this cinematography of their mental illness at all times.
I do. I do it all for the aesthetique.
But it's like there was no internal logic to follow, and like we were talking about how wildly how like difficult it is, because some scenes will be very clearly a delusion that he's having, and you'll be able to tell because of the music and because of the people and because of the stuff, and like the stuff around him is so clearly not happening. Like, he starts watching the Murray Show for the first time, and this is the first time we're introduced to it. And then he's in the audience and he gets called on stage, and like that's obviously fake. A lot of the stuff, like up to and including the lady that he's imagining he has a relationship with, is so much less clear. And there's not really a very clear delineation between true and fake, to the point where some scenes are fake for the cinematography of it all, and you can tell it's fake, and then some scenes are fake, so at the end they can be like, aha, we got you, didn't we? You thought this actually happened. And it's like, I at this point, it's meaningless to delineate between real and fake, because you can say anything's fake. Like, what if he didn't really kill those subway people? What if they just died and he claimed credit for it? Like, what if he didn't really do this? What if he didn't really say this? What if his mom's still alive? And it's like, what if the world is made of pudding? You know, there's no internal logic to what is real and how we're supposed to tell what's real and what's not. And even if all of it is fake, it's like meaningless. Like, it doesn't matter. It didn't make the movie better. It didn't make it easier to understand. It didn't make it more complicated. It just made it so that sometimes you go, well, maybe that didn't happen, and that's why this is happening now.
Do you guys remember way back when, 11 years ago, around the release of the movie Inception, that everyone who went to see the movie Inception, who was our age, which was like late middle school or like early middle school, depending on which one of us you're talking to, Everyone who went to see the film Inception when it was out in theaters came out of that theater and was like, whoa! Dude, it was such a mind fuck. That was like the key operating phrase for Inception when it was out in theaters. Yeah. And then I went to see Inception and I was like, I had no problem at all telling what was real and what was not real. And the cliffhanger, I did not care about it at all. That is what this movie also felt like to me.
No, I think you're both right. I think that like that fundamental like discrepancy between like real and not real, right? I don't want to keep coming back to the theme of nihilism, but like I do truly think that like when you're just like making a character whose whole deal is that nothing matters, and that he's very sad, you can just be like, oh well, it doesn't, it's hard to say. He's so crazy. He's so, out of his mind that, he has these fantasies, and we can just write off the things that are, you do or don't want the audience to guess at as being maybe fantasies, but maybe not. It's messy. I agree. I think that if they had used, musical themes or, given us a little bit more, strong a hint, that like this was a fantasy sequence, I really wish that they had done that. I think it would have been much more effective.
The thing with mental illness is that a lot of things seem like they don't have any rhyme or reason to it. And I think Todd Phillips fully believes that Arthur Fleck is doing things without any rhyme or reason, and he isn't. Like, a lot of the stuff he does is completely impulsive. It doesn't make sense. It's just weird. And it's just supposed to be weird and unsettling on screen. Like that sequence where he takes all the shelves out of his refrigerator and gets in the refrigerator.
It climbs inside the refrigerator.
And I said, as we were watching it, I'm like, why is this happening? Because like, even with real impulsive mental illnesses, there's a logic to it. Like I have OCD and I'm not touching the door all the time because I'm so crazy. I'm so hot and crazy like Harley Quinn. You ever heard of Harley Quinn? I'm hot and crazy like her. No, I'm doing it because I'm checking something. And when people stim, to my understanding, of course, I don't have a perfect understanding of it, but when they're stimming, they're doing it because it feels good. We have no indication that Arthur is feeling vulnerable, so he wants to be in a small space. We have no impression that Arthur is like overheating because he's stressed out, so he wants to be in a cold space. We have no indication of anything. We don't know why he's doing anything. He's just doing things because they're the most cinematically wacky. And as it goes on and he gets off his meds, he does it more and more until it escalates into violence. And it's like, but okay, there's an escalation there, but it's an escalation of nothing because we don't see him being uncomfortable, increasingly uncomfortable. We just see him doing weird things until he kills people, Weird in quotation marks, obviously, because like I said, it wouldn't be weird if we understood why it was happening. It's just weird because that's what they want it to be. They want him to be doing things that are scary to you until he starts killing people.
Speaking of people Arthur killed, another person who struggles with mental illness in this movie, though more off camera than on, is his mom, Penny Fleck. So Penny's whole thing, right, in truth, is that she had an abusive boyfriend who abused both her and Arthur, who was her adopted son. And Penny ended up in Arkham, and she was in denial, and she was convinced that Arthur was Thomas Wayne's son, and he wasn't.
He is.
Well, that's the thing. It's one of those things where it's either she had an abusive boyfriend who abused her child and battered her, and then she was what's the word for when you get committed? She was committed to Arkham, and she went through all that, or she had an affair with Thomas Wayne and had his child, and then he had her committed to Arkham because she was pressing that fact on him so that he would take care of them, and then he never ended up doing it. And I think the point of the movie is like, oh, no matter what one it is. And it's like, if nothing matters, then why am I watching the movie? Like, if there's no clear, logical, like, am I upset? Who am I upset at? Why am I upset?
Yeah.
There is a sequence where he looks at a old picture of his mom, and when he flips it over, it says like "Love Your Smile" on it, and the initials are TW, Thomas Wayne. So I think the film wants us to think that he's definitely.
What if he was imagining it? What if that wasn't
exactly
there at all? There
right.
were newspaper clippings in her psychological report for some reason.
Because it has to be efficient, Marty. We've gone over this. You have to know. It has to be plot relevant.
But I do want to hamper on that because I do think that Penny is of a type. Sorry to cut you off, Leyla, but
I was finished.
What's your okay? So I watch a lot of fucking people owning right-wing reactionaries on YouTube because I'm a sicko. And
you
there's
were already
one guy,
the Joker.
Yeah, I've already been Jokerfied. And there's one guy called Stefan Molyneux who is a real piece of shit. And I remember one of his videos where he is talking about like the reason that women end up with assholes. And he just like goes on this big rant because he's just like, well, assholes, women are just attracted to assholes because they, it's some sort of evolutionary bullshit, right? And I think that's kind of what's happening here. I think that the reason that we are supposed to hate Thomas Wayne is because he's rich and he, sleeps around with women and he doesn't take responsibility for his, his son. Right. I think it is just purely a way to be like, here's another way for you, a young man to, hate. Another thing that happens in this film is that there's two father figures and both of them fail Arthur. Right. This is another thing where it's like, oh, you're a young man. I bet you hate your dad. And I think that's what they're going for here.
Yeah, they do both suck, don't they?
Penny, my issue with Penny is that she wasn't mentally ill until it was convenient to explain Arthur's mental illness.
He's Martha now.
Because at the beginning, I thought she was just kind of like elderly and firm sort of thing because he was bathing her, he was taking care of her, but like she wasn't really like indicating to me that she had like. Because she said, like, really early, she was like, oh, I've been writing letters to Thomas Wayne. And Aaron called, like, immediately that Batman's dad was Joker's dad. And which is a stupid thing. It's stupid. If it's true, it's stupid. And if it isn't true, then it was stupid that they brought it up. But, like, she never gave more of an indication that she was also mentally ill until suddenly Arthur was calling into question his reality, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't tell what reality is because my mom couldn't tell what reality was,
But he's her adopted son, which is even stupider.
Yeah, and there was something about head trauma that he got from the boyfriend who battered them, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's like you said, Aaron, I bet you hate your dad and I bet it's your mom's fault. You're a fucker.
Exactly, right. That's why they
your life
that's
is
why they have him kill his mom,
mother.
right? Yeah, exactly. It sucks.
Yeah. So let's talk about these failed father figures a little bit. We were
Robert De Niro and someone who might be like 2 years younger than Joaquin Phoenix.
Fuck me. Well, the billionaires, they bathe in the blood of the young or whatever.
Apparently it doesn't work, so...
Well, so Thomas Wayne, I barely remember his presence in the movie. Like, truly, like, there are ways to make off-screen characters impactful, in the story, and they just, neither Thomas Wayne or Murray Franklin had an entire, Murray Franklin?
It's Murray Franklin, I believe.
Oh, fuck that. Neither Thomas
Robert
Wayne...
De Niro?
I was about to say neither Thomas Wayne or Robert De Niro are like present enough for them to really make an impact.
My strongest memories of Thomas Wayne are when he had his penis out and said, "Can I help you?" to Arthur, who was staring at him. Yeah. And when I said everyone in this movie is like DiGiorno levels of Italian New Yorker for absolutely no reason. Everyone except Arthur is like yep da 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 da. And it's like what's going on?
I hate to be the one to tell you this. That is accurate to real life.
Oh no!
Been to New York though.
The mob is coming for us. We have to cancel the podcast.
I do hate to tell you this. That is accurate to real life. That is how they are. There's a TikTok that I've watched 1,000 times, where it's this kid in a Yankees jersey. And someone's interviewing him on the street with his friends, and the interviewer's like, "Oh, those Mets fans, right?" And the kid comes out, and he's like, "Can you fucking believe it? My dad's a Mets fan." And someone stitched the TikTok, and they were like, "I don't think his friends like understand what just fucking happened, but he just executed the slickest sequence of Italian American hand gestures I've ever seen in my life. He didn't even have to say anything. I could have just done the gestures, and I would have known what he meant." And like that is how Italian they are in, like, the tri-state area over there. So, you know what? I will stand up for the Joker there. Fucking nailed it.
Great.
I guess. Is that why I don't get this movie? Just cultural shock?
You're not from the tri-state area. So the last person on our list are characters, which I think there should be another character added, and I will add them once we're done talking about her. But Sophia, she sure is there.
Yeah, right. Again, this is the young man's fantasy of having a woman who will just laugh at his jokes, and
I didn't even know she had a name.
I don't think it gets said. I
remember in the subtitles her daughter was
yes.
like Gigi or something.
Yes, her daughter's Gigi.
But that was just pure subtitles.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think it truly is only in subtitles, or if it is, it's mentioned once. But basically, like, you know, this is the young man's fantasy of having a woman who thinks all your jokes are funny, and like you meet a girl one time in math class, and she's like, "Haha, you're funny," and then you're like, "I'm obsessed with this woman." And it, you know, when it turns out that she doesn't know who the fuck you are, and you break into her apartment and she's terrified, then you have a bad reaction to that, and it's just like, don't appeal to that fantasy. It's a bad fantasy.
In all the breakdowns I watched, made it sound as if Arthur had invented this woman whole cloth. And then, like, partway through the movie, he realized he completely invented a woman that didn't exist at all. I really didn't expect her to be an actual woman that he just invented a relationship with. I guess, like you said, that's truer to the incel fantasy. But, like, I don't know. I didn't like how she was an actual person that was being menaced by this 49-year-old man.
Yeah. So the last character I do want to bring up is the Super Rats.
My cameo.
This is a sponsored episode, of course. Marty's sponsoring us.
The Super Rats get brought up more consistently than anything else.
And even they don't have any payoff.
Why
didn't we see one? You'd think you could
Rats?
flash a fucking Super Rat on screen once or twice.
I wish they had Super Rats so bad. This movie would have been 100 times better if at the end, like, the Joker woke up
Rat Avengers.
Yeah, and the Rat Avengers showed up.
The Rat Justice League shows up.
Yeah, no, precisely. I think that this movie would have been thoroughly improved by the presence of Super Rats, and that I think the post-credits scene should have been a Super Cat.
That would have kicked ass. That would have been incredible.
I would have given this movie 5 stars just based on that.
I also have a character I want to add, if I may. Several characters, but they all kind of count as one. It's all under one heading. The Wattpad level collection of side characters who exist to hurt Arthur and nothing else.
Yeah,
like I said, you said incel fantasy, and it's all really, the blocks are really falling into place, because me, a normal person, is watching this movie like, this is bad. Why is anyone into this? But disenfranchised young men, I don't even know if you should call them disenfranchised chodes. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
So he gets mugged and then beat on by children.
Mm-hmm.
His boss
who are screaming as they are beating him. They're saying, "Beat him harder, take his stuff, harder," and then they run away. And they say, "Take his stuff." What stuff? He was on a street corner advertise. He was doing the sign spinning thing as a clown. What stuff did you want to take from him?
Well, which is funny because the movie acknowledges this when Arthur's like, "Why would I keep the sign? Like they took the sign," and Hoyt is like, "Why would they take the sign?" Speaking of Hoyt, who is his boss at the clown factory, he is needlessly mean to Arthur. His two co-workers, asterisk, they're not mean to Arthur. They're both mean to the little person they work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For no reason.
Which the movie pulls over to make fun of this character that's in like every scene he's in. They pull over to make sure to be like, oh, did you get he's short? He's shorter than ever. Did you get that? Everyone get that? Everyone gather around, please. We just want to make sure you didn't forget in between scenes.
I would have almost given it credit because like they want Arthur to be sympathetic to this guy, but like at the very end where the two of his ex-coworkers show up and he murders one of them with a pair of scissors in an incredibly gory shot. He has like drawn the little bolt over his apartment door, so then when the other guy, the person with dwarfism, isn't able to escape, right? They make a point of him having to go and unlock the door. And I think that's just like an extremely mean-spirited thing to do, like to emphasize that.
It feels like they were taking a comedy break by making fun of this man. They were like, "Oh yeah, I get that was gory, but here now you can make fun of this dude." It's
awful.
Back to the counter. We got the guys on the train. They are needlessly mean to Arthur.
Well, they kick him in all the same way too. Like I want to point out, the teens and the train men both push him over so he's laying on his side and then kick him repeatedly.
Yeah, there was not a fight choreographer for 2019, The Joker.
It's very stage play. Everyone has to still be facing the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, do you want to take your time to give your aside as to who these young men were?
They're Chads.
They're just
right?
Just Chads. That's all. Okay.
Right. This is everybody in your high school. Not you guys because you weren't assigned male at birth, but like, right. For somebody who is a cishet man like me, right. This is like everybody. There's always like a bunch of douchebag guys in high school who are like really cool and they hang out with all the hot girls and they go to all the parties and they get drunk and they don't do their grades aren't very good, but like especially me who went to a private high school where like all these people now are extremely rich, right, like like this is a type of guy that you meet, and for the vast majority of young men you see that guy and it's just like, this fucking dude, I can't believe this guy who sucks so bad is rich and famous, or not famous, but like he's having sex with very attractive women that I wish I was having sex with, and like that's just what they are, right? He killed and the movie has to go out of its way and make Arthur look like a hero, so of course they're harassing somebody to give him that justification. But in real life, these are just guys who have rich families and are kind of douchey. Like I've met dudes like this, and yeah, a lot of them are assholes. Some of them are just like kind of annoying, though. I don't know that it deserves a death sentence, but that's the fantasy again, right? This is murdering people who you think are above their social station when you should be there.
Yeah, I wanna make a point of that because that's part of the gaps in internal logic in this movie.
You really have to be you have to have at least. I think Aaron's really hitting on it when he's saying you have to have been a young man to like put this movie together. Because I'm looking at those subway men, and there's a whole clown revolution because everyone's like, the clown is a hero for killing those assholes, and I'm like, maybe they were on their way home from a wedding. Like, I don't think they were good guys, but also like I don't understand why everyone in New York has united around the murder of 4 random men.
It's like,
who aren't even named. They're nobody. But I guess you really have to be mind palacing those clues together.
This movie jumps to violence as a solution at such an inconsistent rate. Like, I do not understand who the Joker thinks is deserving of a death sentence. Because you can't have a character who's like, for every minor transgression, it's a real off with their heads. You know what I mean? You can have that, but it's inconsistent for the Joker. Like, I can't tell who he thinks is deserving of death because the escalation isn't, like, clear, and I don't understand what his reasoning is. Because
now with the nihilism angle, it becomes this thing where at the end you're meant to understand, everyone deserves to die, because it's like, you guys watched,
yes.
Was it in Repo that happened? No, it's Sweeney Todd. I'm thinking of the Sweeney Todd. They all deserve to die, even
Sweeney
you, Mrs. Lovett, even I.
I understand that.
That's what I mean. Like, that's what he's going for, but he's so, like, he doesn't know what nihilism is. He doesn't know, like, he's never studied nihilism. He's never, like, there's no comprehension of any of the themes. It's just a movie for incels. Like, that's the only way that anything makes sense, is if you're an angry little boy who thinks that other boys get an advantage over you because they're hotter than you.
Yes. 100%.
Aaron,
right?
I was going to say, is that what you were going to say?
Yes, when you ask the question, who is deserving of violence, the answer is everyone. Everyone who is better than you in some way, everybody who has slighted you, the people who, you make something that you were born with, something you can't help, and they say, what the fuck is wrong with you? Everyone deserves death. That is the incel ideology. That's what this movie, in some way is undergirding, and it's fucking gross.
Okay, listen. I know that, right? I've been on the internet.
Yeah,
I'm aware.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you don't know that.
The thing that, on a fundamental storytelling level, the thing that bothers me is that, yes, the Joker should, in theory, think that every minor slight against the underdog, aka him, is deserving of death. But this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. And the transformation from Arthur to the Joker is so poorly transitioned and so poorly maintained that the jump from Arthur, who wants to be a comedian, to the Joker, who thinks that everyone who slighted him deserves violence, is unclear and stupid. And therefore, when he starts getting violent, it's like you're watching a different movie.
And again, his transition into violence is largely marked by the murder of his mother. He smothers his mother in the hospital. Smother mother.
Is he a mother smotherer?
He does some smother mothering.
Mother smother.
And it's like, okay, number one, violence begins with destroying your mother who ruined your life. Cool. Like, I get the Joker is a villain, but also, like, they're really trying to make Arthur sympathetic in a way that he's not. Like, sometimes you feel bad for him, and sometimes you don't. And sometimes he's just killing people at complete random, and it's such an inconsistent feeling. But that transition to violence with his mother, like, your mother... I think this is going to get the same answer from Aaron that we've been getting. Like, your mom lying to you about who your dad is doesn't mean that the TV show host that laughed at you should be dead. You know? Like... Your mom being mean to you, like, is not a death sentence for everyone.
No, but like when...
But I guess it dog whistles the movie.
Right. Masculinity, especially in the U.S., is so fragile and is so undergirded by our culture that glorifies and allows access to, tools of death. That, like, that's a lot of young people, even myself to a certain degree, is just like, guns are cool. I'm not proud of that, but like culture and society are powerful. Very powerful. Damn it! I set off the trigger.
It's only been you too.
Yeah, because this is the movie that's aimed at me. If I wasn't if I wasn't a brown person, this movie might be more effective to me. Which is another way. By the way, a lot of the people he menaces, Leyla pointed this out, are black women. It's gross.
It's bizarre because you get so far into the movie, and I think, like, I noticed it definitely because, like I said, Leyla said it very, very early that he was just menacing black women. But then when he's looking in, he's trying to get his mother's psychology record psyche eval from, I assume that was Arkham that we saw.
Yeah. Yes.
And the man working at the counter is a black man, and really, like, right at that moment, I was sitting there and I'm like, nobody else, huh? That's like, what?
It's weird.
You know?
It's not a good pattern.
I'm starting to hear the faint sounds of a dog whistle.
Like, do I think that Todd Phillips is, a secret crypto fascist? Like,
yes.
No. But like,
I can't prove
I
it,
think,
but I wouldn't be surprised if it came out tomorrow.
listen, would I be surprised? Like, not really. But at the same time, right? It is. I don't think this in particular is a dog whistle, but it is certainly like the kinds of
because the only other time that anyone mentioned their race at all was in the comedy club when the comedian specifically pointed out that he was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at that moment too, I was like, we're kind of building a palace that I don't like here.
That's another person
weird.
who
That's
was unnecessarily mean to Arthur was the MC for that comedy show.
Who was a black man, yeah.
He was
unnecessarily mean to Arthur. You could add him to the list. Yeah, it is not a good thing.
Uh-oh. I might be retracting my statements.
I would like to I think Aaron's right. I think he's just I think the guy's just got a shitty sense of humor. I think that's what this boils down to. Not a good storyteller, shitty sense of humor, and it doesn't know what story he wants to tell. Are those crimes? No. Does it make him a bad person? Probably not. But it does make for a boring movie, and I think it is completely okay to watch him throw a tantrum to an interviewer, which he did, about how people don't want to watch this movie because it's probably going to be pretentious, and look at that and be like, then don't make a pretentious movie.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing is I'm much less kind than the two of you. And I was being very generous with Leyla earlier today where I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie was fine. And I wouldn't be surprised if this movie was good to people who are really into cinema, like the old fashioned film bros before film bros expanded to include anyone who doesn't watch Marvel movies.
Yeah.
But, that was just earlier today that I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, if it turned out that all the controversy and stuff was overblown. And then you watch it and you're just disappointed because there's nuggets of things could be in a better movie and mean something. Like Arthur being left behind by the medical system. He can't get access to his meds anymore because meds got caught by Thomas Wayne. Thomas Wayne who at the very least menaced his mother a little bit, at the very least troubled a mentally ill woman. Even if she was having delusions, he committed her and then totally it's worth it to say that he was a negative effect on their lives. And there's something there that in the hands of someone who isn't angry on Twitter would be really interesting. But I think at minimum, this guy is of the oeuvre there where it's well, you can't joke about anything and everyone's so sensitive. And so I'm going to make a movie.
He literally said that.
Mm-hmm,
that's where it all comes from because we were all there when he threw the fit about no one wanting to watch the movie because blah blah blah, and it's no one wanted to watch the movie because everyone still remembered the Aurora shooting that was already Joker themed,
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was like, if you make a movie that makes a murderer sympathetic, then you're dog whistling to these people who want to kill people. And
actually, I think you almost accidentally, possibly purposefully stumbled onto something, right? Because a much better movie, again, one of the 4 movies contained in this experience, I think one of those movies could have been about how the wealthy use the systems in place in society to intentionally or unintentionally harass poor people, to protect themselves, right? It's not always an antagonistic desire to use a system against a poor person, but it is a selfish one. So Thomas Wayne uses the system to commit Penny to an asylum. He does not think about the longer term consequences of doing that. He just wants to protect himself in the immediate. There is a movie in there that is like that. The problem is that people what's the director's name? I don't even remember it.
Todd Phillips?
Todd Phillips. The guys like Todd Phillips, right? I said this off the air. I went to film school with guys like Todd Phillips who think that their mild depression is poetic. It's not. I have pretty severe depression. I don't find it poetic unless I'm in the middle of a episode in which case I need a nap and some like nachos stat, and then all of a sudden I'm normal again. But like, it's a movie that somebody with no perspective is trying to make, and therefore all attempts at making sense are no longer earnest, and they're just like paper mache cliches that are just like hodgepodge together, and it's just not.
It's so
good.
Immediately obvious because the very first people that trouble Arthur are just some teen. And then his coworkers are mean to him. And then his mother is mean to him. And then the girl who lives next door in his shitty apartment that's so miserable that Thomas Wayne should have never let us live here. She also lives there with her daughter alone. And she isn't dating him. And like, as much as Thomas Wayne is the villain of this movie, he isn't. Everyone is the villain. So, and I get that whole, again, when you say everyone.
What's the villain?
What's the villain, though?
What's the villain, though?
I think Aaron says it best.
I think, you know, guys, I think the real villain is society.
It's not even society. It's just everybody. And I said it again so you can put the counter up again. It's just everybody. There's no sense of like it's the poor versus the rich, or it's the mentally ill versus the system that just wants them to shut up and not act like they're mentally ill in public. And it's not the jobs where no one will give them a break, and it's not anything. It's everything. And I know when you do nihilism, he wants to do this nihilistic. Well, everyone's the villain, so everyone deserves it. And it's not. That doesn't make for a good movie. Like, even setting aside the fact that it's an insane and miserable, just garbage, gut-rotting perspective on society, you can put the counter up again. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. Why am I watching this movie? Why am I rooting for Arthur? Why am I not rooting for Arthur? Why is he there? Why is he the protagonist? Why isn't the protagonist Penny? Why isn't the protagonist the lady that lives next door? Like, why is anything? You can't make a movie about nihilism because it's not a movie. It's just a big, someone hits a bong real hard and goes, man, why anything?
I think you're so right. I think you're right that if this movie had actually been about society, it might have been salvageable, but it's not, right? It's not pointing its criticisms at the right people, and I think that is a huge misstep.
It's like the problem is that we're all alive, and it's like, well, that's simply not it.
Are there any other points we wish to visit before we lead ourselves into the outro? Because at this point, my brain is fucking goo.
I do want to do a marketing minute about what film we would make that is just as rancid as the Joker, but for our own weird, petty grievances.
Would you have one?
Gosh, I think it's probably about people who think that the Civil War was about states' rights, and it's just
okay. Pitch it to me.
I feel like it's just like somebody who fought in the Battle of Gettysburg, like going around in like the 1870s, being like, it wasn't about states' rights, and beating up, you know, the KKK.
Okay, that is, and what's the runtime on that bad boy?
6 hours, like every Civil War movie.
like Avatar: Way of the Water.
A real Ken Burns experience.
Exactly.
Interesting. Do I have a petty grievance that I could make a 2.5 hour? Yes, actually. Okay, I got it. Ready? My main character is gonna be somebody who works in the marketing department of big budget Hollywood films. They work in a marketing firm that gets contracted out a lot for these films. And it's going to be a Russian person, and they're going to get Joker-fied when people start using Cyrillic characters to make posters that have non-Cyrillic sounds. Like, they replace A with the letter D. Like, that, I would play that, and then I would get to do real murder. And that's my 3.5 hour movie with no piss break. Marty, do you have a petty grievance you want to make a really long movie about?
I would take a camera and I would go back to my alma mater and I would put the camera in front of the professor of the creative writing class, a class which I attended one time before dropping with my buddy. And it would just film his entire lecture about how genre fiction is cheap, marketable garbage, that only the most base of humanity, that's only popular because it's so easy to write and there's so many tropes that you barely even, it's just a color by numbers, and no one likes real literature anymore. They just like, and then I'm going to make people watch that for 6 hours.
So the Joker.
Yeah.
It's the Joker, but you framed it through your professor's lit class.
Yeah, the Joker, but for books this time.
Man, I hate fucking the fantasy genre. Such a fucking cash grab. Beowulf? Are you kidding me? What a sellout.
Oh, and romance writers? Oh, fuck them, am I right?
Yeah. Don't say it too loud, though, because they might take it too literally.
No, we are pro romance writers on this podcast.
No,
I would be disturbed
anti.
if you were anti.
No, I hate them. Strictly anti. Fuck them.
No, stop, please, romance writers don't hurt us.
Marty is a romance writer. That's why it's funny.
I assume Marty knows people and could get the romance mafia to obliterate us.
Oh my god, please, romance mafia, obliterate me. I don't want to live after this movie.
Leyla heard about my experiences with the romance mafia and how much fun I had during that stretch of time. So.
That's no.
Great.
I was
Anything
the
else
romance mafia.
Anything else we want to add about the 2019 movie by Todd Phillips, The Joker?
Great music.
Yeah, that's fair. It was a good soundtrack.
I think incels should get really into Wattpad, because I think they would really relate to the idea of everyone trying to hurt you, except this time you have a sexy vampire boyfriend whose entire existence revolves around protecting you from all the people who want you murdered for some reason.
I do think
Jupiter
they should
Ascending,
get into
great
vampires.
film.
Yeah. I think. I agree. Get into Wattpad. Give the teenage girlies something to write about. Great, cool. Marty, where can people find you on the internet?
Pretty much only at heartforge.itch.io. Heartforge, HEARTFORG.
You can find me at LEYLSCS on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. I am currently working on a long love letter to Xenosaga and the way it talks about grief and how it's buried in maybe some not so good gameplay and storytelling. And I draw sometimes, working on it, even though the world's on fire. Aaron, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL, where I tweet about tabletop RPGs, health policy, and writing. I just did a review of Momato's What Dust Remains on my YouTube channel. That's at a Voigt on YouTube. YouTube doesn't have ats, but that's fine. And you can listen to the other podcasts I do at The Bible Boys, where me and my ex-evangelical friends talk about Christian media. Me and Josh just talked about the Heaven is for Real film, which was so much worse than the book, astonishingly. That episode will go up on Wednesday. Yeah,
It's
wild
that
shit.
hurtled me back into 6th grade so hard I have a concussion now.
Yeah, good times.
And after this recording is over, I'm going to force Marty to stay on the call with me, and we're going to come up with a name for our podcast that is slowly impending, where we rewatch Inuyasha and talk about it.
Nice. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla,
Aaron,
what do we say after this massacre of a movie?
Normally we quote the thing that we just finished talking about, but for this ending of this episode of this podcast, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, fuck both of you.
Hell yeah. Bye.